My name is Gerard Hines. I'm the Executive Director at Hinesight, and we're so excited to have our second roundtable discussion. To my right, we have Susan Spears, CEO of the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber of Commerce, Xavier Richardson, CDO and Senior Vice President at Mary Washington Healthcare, Michelle Caldwell Thompson, CEO of CTI Real Estate, and Dan Buckman, VP Wealth Advisor at BB&T Bank. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope you guys feel excited, relaxed. This is going to be an amazing discussion, and I want to start off to get to know you guys a little bit more, but I'm going to ask a funny question. Who is your favorite business leader of all time, whether it's someone you've met personally or someone famous, someone who's inspired you in the work that you're doing?
Wow.
My favorite business leader would be Reginald Lewis, who was the CEO of Beatrice Foods International. He was a pioneer relative to African American corporate executives and was at one time the wealthiest African American in the United States prior to his passing. What was most important about it was the opportunity I had to get to know him because our children were in school together, and I got to see him from a different perspective and to see the genuine individual he was and the just phenomenal and brilliant person that he was, and the great contributions he made to society while he was here with us.
Awesome. Wow, you got to meet him.
Yes, several times.
I'll let you.
One of my favorite business leaders is Franklin Bud Jones of Quincy, Florida. Mr. Bud Jones was the first African American entrepreneur that I was aware of. He provided employment for many of the people in the small town, and he was aggressive with his activism and giving back to the community. So as a young person, I saw this fabulous gentleman working hard, giving back, and making a difference. And it really inspired me as a young person.
The one name that popped into my head is Henry Ford, for a few different reasons. Number one, obviously very successful in his own right, so it's something that has stood the test of time. But also he was innovative in the way that he cared for his employees. So from what I remember, he's actually one of the first people to institute vacation days and to start focusing on the standard of living of his employees while at the same time keeping an eye on the ball and being a leader in his business, in his community.
I'll give you one that's a little different, but definitely inspired my path as a business leader because she taught business. Ms. Marguerite Young, who is local, somebody I've known since I was in about first grade. And she has inspired so many people in business in our community by being a community activist for business causes. One of the first times I was at a city council meeting, she was the first speaker. And that was in August 11th, 1998, and it was speaking for the Celebrate Virginia project. And she spoke in favor of the rezoning of the land where Wegmans and the Expo Center and all of those things are today. And she spoke before the Chamber of Commerce spoke. There they were lined up in their suits right behind her.
Wow.
And I said, oh, I know, Ms. Young is just awesome. So I consider her, even though she was in education, definitely a business leader.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to think of one for myself, and I didn't think about my own question. I did an internship at General Electric, and Jack Welch is a really inspiring. I love his some of his principles that he's done. Steve Jobs as well, I think, is from the creative aspect. It's just very cool. And I asked that question because a lot of the business leaders that we look up to or have been inspired by have some of these principles that we may not even know that we implement in the way that we do business. And my next question is about how they manage their employees and how that's affected you. When it comes to employees, some of y'all may have hired employees before. What's the number one thing that you look for when hiring a new team member onto your staff?
When hiring a new team member at CTI Real Estate, integrity and authenticity. We're in the sales business, and people can tell when you have buy-in and when you truly believe in what you're doing and it comes from a good place. And especially in the real estate world, when you're dealing with folks with one of their largest financial transaction, they have to know that they can trust the person that's sitting across their kitchen table. So for me, integrity and authenticity.
That's huge.
I would say fit and character, fit with the organization, fit with a particular department, fit with the culture, because if it's not a good fit, it doesn't matter if you have all of the right credentials and all of the experiences, et cetera. If there's not a good fit with the existing culture or the culture that you care to develop, it could be chaotic. And certainly.
When you say fit, like, you know, we got to be physically fit because we're going around.
Oh yes, that's why, you know, I do my 10,000 steps every day. So I want somebody who will be fit to do that too. Yes, no, but no, fit with culture and fit with the organization's values, etc. So character is also something too, because if you can't trust someone, if the organization can't trust, if peers can't trust, and they don't have great character, it doesn't matter again if they have all of those other things. So I look for those things, you know, once you screen for the proper credentials and experiences, you know, fit and character, the deal sealers. Yes.
Yeah.
The one thing, so I've hired for a few different organizations, mostly in the financial services industry, and usually it's a bit of a grind. So the one thing that I tend to focus on is sincere interest. If somebody's going to be reaching the limit of their potential,
Yes.
if they're not interested, they're going to burn out. You know, they have to have a real reason why they want to do this, and then usually all the other things can come together. You can learn on the job, things like that. But I echo, you know, what I also heard around the table as well.
What do you mean by that, ground?
If you're not making mistakes, you're probably not outside of your comfort zone, you're probably not pushing yourself. In order to figure out what you're capable of, you're going to have to experience a lot of stress. And sometimes stress can be a good thing. Sometimes stress is something that you want to avoid. It's a motivator to avoid that. But if somebody knows why they want to do something, if they're really passionate about a cause, about an industry, they can find another gear. That's what I would look for.
That's awesome.
I'm going to agree with all of your points and say, you know, to be in love with our organization as a nonprofit, the Chamber, that is baseline. Like you need to be a good match for our mission and for what we do. But our entire team interviews folks when we onboard. For us, culture, team, fit, all the pieces really matter. We call ourselves ChamFam. Chamber family, and we take that real serious. And so we expect you to be able to put a sentence together, right. Maybe run an event, do the different pieces, but a lot of it you can learn, and it's really about your heart and, like you said, Michelle, authenticity, trust. So we know that's what we look for.
Yeah, we became members of the Chamber about a year ago now, and the Cham Fam they're awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. And so even with, you know, some of the things that you all have mentioned, there's been challenges that, you know, whether it's personally or as a business that you all may have gone through. I know recently we even had a recession, you know, and I want to talk about this topic of challenges and the importance of being able to work through challenges and what may have helped you all to overcome, whether that's through your business endeavors or personally through a challenge in your life. What's something that has helped you guys work through different challenges when it seems like, man, like I just want to give up, no one has got my back, or this is really, really difficult? You know, what are some things that have helped you to stick in there when it comes to your business endeavors?
I found when challenges are overwhelming me, it can be that I'm having too many conversations with myself. I'm not reaching out to mentors, friends, colleagues, experts that can help. Oftentimes, a crisis, you think it's a crisis, isn't a crisis. You've built it up to something that you can't imagine getting beyond. When we get stuck in things like perfectionism and not making mistakes, not failing, but opening ourselves up, which I've come to learn to do on a more regular basis than I may have earlier in my career. And going ahead and saying, hey, can you help me out? Or here's my struggle has really made it almost anything able to be managed. Mm-hmm.
I would echo Susan in that regard, showing some vulnerability to say, I need help. Having a strong mentor team that can share maybe other insights, different ways of looking at things, and sometimes even possible solutions that have been just beyond your grasp because you were caught up in the crisis of the moment, can be a huge way of working through challenges, not thinking that you have to do it all by yourself. So having a mentor team, a leadership team, reaching out to others who have gone that path before, leaning on the experience of even more established business people, and leveraging the connections of experience, not only in your field, but other complementary endeavors that may have gone through similar types of things. It matters.
Yeah, and you have a little bit of a different experience where you've started,
Yes.
a company and now it's thriving with CTI Real Estate. I mean, what were some of the challenges with starting something? And then, I think that's something we can all learn from as well. So,
I will share. We started our firm in 2004, so CTI is celebrating our 15th year this year. 2004 in real estate, I would venture to say that many people thought that the market was crowded enough, that we already had enough real estate folks in the marketplace. So a huge challenge was finding a voice, having a market differential, saying this is what makes us unique in a area that wasn't that large of a place. Plugging in to mentors, established business leaders, leaning on the expertise of the people in the community that were already leading the way to say, how can we make a difference? Yes, there are other fabulous businesses here doing wonderful things. Where is it that CTI can plug in? How can we leverage what we do into being a community partner where folks can embrace us, especially coming from a larger marketplace to say, we're here, we have a skill set, and we want to give back in a tangible way that that can make a difference. And I think that was the pivot point for our firm, not only becoming an more established firm in the area, but having some acceptance from the community when the community was able to see that we were more than just a real estate firm, we were a community partner.
right.
That's what made the difference.
Yeah. And you mentioned something as well. It's kind of a question for everyone. The crowdedness. Fredericksburg is getting a lot more attention, and
Yes.
growing. Do you guys see business here as growing or decreasing as well with all the influx of people moving in and living here?
Both. I mean, I see that certainly business is growing as a reflection of the increase in population relative to healthcare. But on the side of foundations and fundraising, there's a lot of crowding just by the sheer numbers of nonprofits who now are vying for the same pot of funds. So it requires, often it's a challenge sometimes to be able to determine which projects and programs you're going to support on our giving side, but also from the fundraising side, it also is a challenge because there are many great nonprofits out there. Sometimes there may be some duplication of services sometimes, and that's one of the things that we've done from the fundraising, from the grant making perspective. We've actually encouraged programs to collaborate and to avoid redundancy of services and activities. And sometimes it's a challenge sometimes to get everybody to play in the same sandbox. But fortunately, the community has benefited from all of these great nonprofits that have developed over the years and have identified some of the things that we need to make our community a better place. That's why we also work with nonprofits to assist them in grant seeking outside of the grants that we award. I have a duality of existence because on the one hand I'm giving away money and on the other hand I'm raising money, and I can usually tell where people are relative to that spectrum by where their hands are. You notice that the people with their hands out working for a nonprofit, they're looking for money. The people who have the money have their hands in their pockets so that I won't take their funds. But I can see it from both perspectives is basically what I'm saying. And so we do work with nonprofits to encourage them to explore other sources out there, and we have also collaborated with some and partnered with some to apply jointly for some grants from external sources outside of the community, which has helped to bring additional funds into the community as opposed to competing for those same funds that everyone is struggling to get a piece of the pie.
Right. Yeah. And what do y'all think as far as growth in the area and the effect that it has on business, and if that's a good thing or if it's something that Fredericksburg is rising to the challenge as far as the business community?
We've experienced the largest growth really in the state. We've been the fastest growing region in the Commonwealth since 1970. This region's grown by 400%. And those of us that have been around, Xavier and myself are natives. So we've seen it really change a lot, in my opinion, for the good. It's our problems, our struggles, our issues are problems of success. One of the biggest issues that comes with that growth that has affected business here for all of us in the room is transportation. Our infrastructure just has not caught up with the growth, and we're still projected to nearly double in population over the next 25, 30 years. So we all need to work together to seek solutions, not just cars, not just roads, but transit, mass transit, other ways to help that so that folks can get here with their goods, so that people can move around easily when Michelle needs to show houses, when folks need to get to adequate health care, when people need some advice on what to do with their finances or where to retire, what's a good place to be. So that overarching issue shows our region. It's big, but what do you expect? We're right in between the nation's capital and the Commonwealth's capital. Yes. Right. We are located in an excellent location for business, and we do continue to grow. We can't keep up with the ribbon cuttings and businesses that are opening around here, which is a good problem to have. Right.
Yeah, and your team has been on the forefront really of the transportation, conversations around transportation, workforce development, and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you have done in that initiative? Oh,
it just goes on and on and on. Really,
and why it's important to the community as well.
Well, as far as like the workforce initiative, this affects all of us here too. Folks need to be able to live here and work and live here and not have to commute. So we have such a large out commute in this region, and it's such a great place to be. We want people to have affordable jobs here. And it's sort of like a never-ending cycle of folks looking for jobs, not wanting this or that, moving out of the region to be in exciting cities like Richmond or up in Northern Virginia. And so we're working all around it, highlighting the jobs that are here, working with our educational institutions to make sure that there's ways to get the certifications that will provide jobs like at Dahlgren, jobs that there's so many government contractors around here that are constantly looking for folks, and they have to advertise nationally to get some of these specialized positions filled. So we need to get our workforce to match that. So one of the big things we do is a STEM summit every year to attract younger kids to come out and see the opportunities in the local area for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics jobs in the future. Yeah, it's a pretty big issue for the business community.
Yeah.
First of all, I like to say Fredericksburg region is a welcoming place. And as we talk about not only the housing market, but the influx of people coming to our region, people are buying not only a house, they're buying a lifestyle. They're buying a place where people say hi to you in the grocery store. They're buying a downtown that's walkable, restaurants that they can go to on the weekends, sitting on the dock on the bay here, being able to enjoy the views of the Rappahannock. And that makes it unique in being able to be a draw from the folks that are coming from our nation's capital or from Richmond. We also find that Fredericksburg, in some sense, as Susan said, that Susan and Xavier are from here and we are not. So you do have a bit of come here from here in this region. But we're finding that it's becoming a pleasant merge of the folks that have grown up here are also doing really well with the folks that are choosing this area as their forever home.
Sure.
This is a big deal in our community, the growth dynamic, because there is so much to offer. Housing prices are reasonable. There is often a split family where one person works in the greater Fredericksburg region and one person commutes. That's why transportation is so important. Try explaining the art of slugging to someone coming into our region as this is an option. Also, the higher prices in Northern Virginia often drive people to our region for lifestyle reasons that we talked about.
Yeah.
But that also presents some challenges for some of the organizations here that are struggling to find a way to thrive. For instance, the arts community, performing arts, because a lot of people still, although they live here, they will continue to go north for entertainment. They may, I don't have any hair, but I'm told that once you have a hairstylist that you're comfortable with, you may continue to travel 50 miles for that, or even sometimes healthcare. Of course, when there are children involved, that's when sometimes we find people are introduced to the healthcare system through their children, but otherwise, many people continue to go to the same physicians and all. So it has certainly brought a lot of new folks here, and I think that the community is great. I mean, we used to refer to it as Dead Fred, and one of my former teachers, Rick Hall, I think you probably had him too, and he was a great teacher, but he had a few sarcastic comments every once in a while, and one that resonated in my mind and for a long time until I came back to Fredericksburg was that the reason why Fredericksburg, he said, was so slow and backwards and slow to change was because the last time George Washington left Fredericksburg, he told the people of Fredericksburg, don't do anything until I returned, and we were still waiting. Well, by George, I think we now have gotten the word, and we are seeing many great things. Now I really feel like the bumper sticker that I first saw when I got here that the former National Bank had, and it was a skyline of Fredericksburg, a silhouette of the skyline. It said, I belong in Fredericksburg. And I had that for about 25 years. I had an extra one that I was going to put on the right car. And then finally I said, you know what, I'm not going to put it on my car. I gave it to Mayor Greenlaw, and she puts it on her car. That's why there's only one like that around town now, because I kept it for many years thinking I would use it, but I gave it to her.
So. That's awesome. And I mean, even, so I want to come back to the workforce discussion, but we have some New York folks in the house. And so, I mean, even that idea of coming from a bigger city, being here, what's kind of the challenges or the different adjustments that you all have had to take? You know, so Dan, I know you're not from Manhattan, but have worked there in technology.
So I grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia. So it's a very familiar vibe to Fredericksburg. Went to school in Virginia and only recently spent the last 4 or 5 years up in New York City. So very much a Virginia boy in the New York world for a little bit. But up there, lots of things to enjoy, but it's overwhelming. There's just always 14 things to do at any given moment. So no matter what sort of experience you're enjoying, you feel like you're missing out on something else. So that's probably the vibe that is just too far at that end of the spectrum. So coming to Fredericksburg, I've been trying to plug in and find out where my school's university and alumni club is, and get to know the Chamber of Commerce, the Next Gen group there, and just find all the different ways that I can meet people and plug in as though I were back in college, because it was just so much easier when everybody's in that new experience together. So finding those groups here, I think we'll be able to find those common interests and maybe find out ways to invite more theater shows or find more events, or even more local businesses like breweries where people are very social. I think increasingly there are a lot of discussions, and just over the last so many years I've seen in Richmond and Fredericksburg, especially the brewery scene has just really exploded and brought a lot of people out of their homes and into the society to network with one another and become more of a community. So that's just one perspective.
So you don't miss the hustle and bustle?
I miss things. I don't miss the total package.
First thing I noticed was that I remembered is that we had speed limits here. We didn't have those in New York. I quickly learned that. But no, the thing that you have to adjust is that sometimes there aren't as many things to do, but the quality of the things that we have here. I mean, the university has an extensive offering of free activities, and there are many other different organizations, and I think that's why one of the grants that was won by an organization through the Community Foundation was to organize those, Rap Art, I think it's called, and it has a calendar of all of the events in the town, cultural and arts, and various types of events. And it also has it by types. There's one for African American culture, so you can find all the different programs and initiatives that are going on. Like I said, many of these things are free. So I mean, I went from at first saying this is boring, what is there to do, to now finding that there's sometimes 2 or 3 things to do in a night, even during the middle of the week. And I mean, there's a great, when all else fails, just go to the restaurants and bars along William Street. I mean, you can actually bar hop. I say it's not Georgetown, but it's George's town. So you can find a lot to do here. And it's so, I mean, plus the culture here is so warming and so inviting, and that's what I like. And it's manageable. And you also have access to, as you're saying, DC and Richmond. And if you really want to go somewhere and be on time, I would suggest you go south. The traffic is a little better, but and Richmond is a manageable city as well, so there's plenty to do. Discover Virginia. There's lots of great places here.
There's strong analogies to the culture that we were talking about earlier about businesses and hiring specific types of people. And so the vibe in Fredericksburg, when people have an identity that's clear and that they're proud of, I mean, I think increasingly the more people get out and become together, it's going to have more of an identity, just like New York has a clear identity of just intensity. And so that's what brings people together. If Fredericksburg feels right to you, then you'll be able to share that with other people, and that'll just inspire other people who are misfits in New York City, for example, to find this place and then to come here and to bring with it all the things that they bring.
Right. Right. And, you know, as far as expansion, I mean, we're going to get some significant expansion pretty soon with the Amazon headquarters coming up soon. How do you guys feel like that's going to affect the Fredericksburg area as far as business, livelihood, and I mean, even with transportation, you know, well, what do you guys feel about that?
Oh, I will share that increased profits drive competitors. So what I mean is with Amazon coming into the area, then we also expect that support systems and contractors affiliated with Amazon will always also come into the area. Amazon's going to Crystal City. What we found in the early real estate 2000s is that when price points reached a certain level in Northern Virginia, folks were interested in providing a certain standard for their families, and that pushed families farther down the 95 corridor into our area. People often say, I'm going to DC, I'm moving to DC, but very rarely do they actually end up living in DC proper. They are often on one side of the bridge or on the other side of the bridge. Right. In many cases, I found that it was the Virginia side of the bridge, and depending on their income, farther down the 95 corridor. So I expect not only the Amazon folks, but the supporting businesses that will come with Amazon will cause a population increase in our area. That's what the real estate experts are telling us. And I think that can be a good thing. But I also think that as a region, we have to think of the impact of transportation, housing permits, resale homes, the support system for our schools to be able to welcome these newcomers with the same warmth that Fredericksburg has shown over the last decade or two.
Yeah. What do you guys think about that as well?
Well, I think with technology and the ability to work from home, I think that many more people will find that those salaries and income that they will be making there will go a lot farther here. And so if you don't have to commute 2 days a week or 3 days a week, it's not all that bad. So especially when you're looking for quality of life for your children and you're looking for space, et cetera, I think that, yeah, I tell people all the time, you may find a community just as good, but you won't find one any better than this one. So I think that a lot of people will find this and find this to be an attractive place. It certainly will have ancillary impact, not only in that region there, but throughout the whole Commonwealth. So
right.
It was a great move.
Yeah, and kind of going off of what you said about the community impact and even that support system that's needed there. I know that you have extensive experience helping to support the school system, the community here, and even with the Partnership for Excellence, that's something that we all have benefited from greatly. And so I don't know if you'd like to talk a little bit about how do you think initiatives like that can really impact the community in regards to the well-being, but then even further beyond that with leaning towards profits and overall support in the community.
Sure. I think there's lots of opportunities for those support systems, and not only in terms of providing the direct support to the students, but also providing support to families, but also in helping to guide students into the right careers, to take advantage of the things that are coming our way. I remember when back in the dark ages when we were in school, there were job fairs, there were career fairs, and even, now you all think I'm corny, but in the 7th grade we were required to study health careers because the state knew that there was going to be an upcoming shortage. So we all had to study the various health careers, and then we had to write a paper. Well, what did I write mine on? Healthcare administration, hospital administration, even back in the 7th grade. So those things we need to do more of in terms of partnering, working with the chamber, working with the schools, working with companies and corporations, because I think a lot of times students are leaving high school and not even aware of a lot of the careers that are available. I mean, it's sometimes, especially those students who are not heading to a 4-year college where they'll have a chance to do that, but those who either just think they're going to go out into the workforce and not realize that they're not equipped to do anything, and then you talk to them about careers about cybersecurity or something like that. And the kids say, I'm going to Japan, and I said, well, you want to go to community college? What about cybersecurity? And this kid now has been, every time I see him, he's been doing research and all, and he's interested And then sometimes they'll say, I'm not interested in something because they think that you have to have this particular major and study, but they haven't even done their homework to even know. So I think that we need to expose young people to some of those careers because it will only make our community even more attractive to business. I also serve on the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, which is largely responsible for bringing Amazon to Virginia. And one of the things that we note frequently is that there are a lot of businesses that are really interested in coming to Virginia. We may have the infrastructure relative to transportation in certain places. We may have plenty of office space. We have all these things, but sometimes they don't have the workforce. And some of the training does not require a college degree, but just by partnering with the high schools, you can train those students to be prepared for that. And we just need to be more proactive in training the workforce here. And I know there's a lot of conversation about workforce development in this community, but and at the college levels. But I think more and more you can see more of that taking place at the high school and even middle schools. In some ways, I think we're less prepared than we were when we were in the dark ages. At least I was. I mean, for instance, we had an LPN school that prepared high school students could take 1 year of nursing school through the hospital, and then take one more year, and then they had the LPN. We don't have that now, especially in the city. But there's lots of careers like that, and we as a healthcare system are working to develop some things to better prepare students and working in conjunction, like I said, with not only the colleges but also the high schools, and retraining some people. I mean, we have a large percentage of people coming out of the military, and some of those are very well disciplined. They would make great employees. They're mature. They are the generation that will stay somewhere for 20 years. So why not train those persons? And in fact, the military actually provides benefits for you as you are transitioning out of the military to even be retrained in some things. So we just need to take advantage of those resources and work even in conjunction with the military bases to see who's, some of these people come here. Once you come here, you get hooked on it, and so these people want to live here. So why not grab some of those folks too and train them?
I think education is huge at every level. I tutor elementary aged kids, and I'm trying to get involved at different levels in addition to that. I think that the training and adding new skills is critical, but there's also another piece to that, which is just informing what's out there. Right, exactly. So there may be choices for people, and to that point that I made earlier, if they're able to choose something, maybe there's limited options, but if they can just say, of the 3 things that are on the table, that's the one I picked, then there's ownership there, and that may give them a brighter future. If there's the education that the community can provide, so they can choose where they're going to go.
Many more career fairs, right? And I mean, once you tell young people things nowadays, they have access to the internet. I mean, if they have a keen interest in it, they will do the research and they'll prepare themselves. They just need to have that introduction of what the possibilities are. Right. And I don't hear those conversations in schools these days.
It seems like, and we're gonna have to wrap up here. There's so many questions that are coming to mind. But it seems like on one end there's a lot of the resources that are already here in the community that some people may not know about them. But then there's also areas where we can, whether it's increasing the amount of education or exposure to certain career fields that's still needed. What do you all feel is one thing that if we could be able to build in the Fredericksburg regional area that would really help with increasing the workforce readiness, and then also supporting our young people who are coming up into the workforce?
To build, I would say Germanna does a really good job with workforce development, our community college in the region. The Chamber has an excellent workforce liaison opportunity for workforce. I think it's more of exposure. Just like my colleague Dan just said here, young folks and Xavier, young folks coming out of high school just may not be aware not only of the options, but also of the income potential. For example, I am in real estate. Real estate does not take a 4-year college degree to obtain a real estate license. Being a property manager, I work with vendors all of the time. And when you look at the dynamics of the plumber, the electrician, the roofer, these are all viable careers that people make a comfortable living wage and can support their families. Yes, we're all college advocates of for 4-year college being a very viable path to long-term stability. But I will agree that sometimes we just don't talk enough about other options that may not take a 4-year opportunity, whether it's the phlebotomist at the hospital or the pharmacy tech or the plumber or the real estate agent. These are all very important parts of our society and our community. And I think all of us may need to do a bit better job letting younger people know that these are viable options that can provide a living wage for their families.
Not only that, but we need to provide those resources so that they can pursue those while they're pursuing their high school diplomas. Because many of those fields that you mentioned, they could be trained in those concurrently with earning a high school diploma and leave high school prepared to make a decent living. I mean, I have a granddaughter who's now at Hampton University, and while in high school, because she wants to go into become a pharmacist, she began training as a pharmacy assistant, pharmacy tech, while in high school, and within less than a year, she's already making over $20 an hour while in college. You know, so that's something someone could have been doing who was not interested in going to college and progress through that career path. So I think there are a lot of programs that we need to consider, and we need to regionalize some of those things. And I know school systems tend to be very proprietary and proud of what they do, but I think it's time for collaboration now, because not all schools, smaller school systems can afford to provide all the services. And you have vocation centers like out in Spotsylvania where they learn carpentry, they like learning to become electricians, and there are all kinds of things in food service industry. There's a lot of things that we could be doing, and those things not only will provide income for students right away, but also provide great income for students while they are pursuing a college degree. So the other thing I think that we can do that doesn't take a lot is that we need to provide the opportunity for students to shadow us. You know, there should be a day where students just have the opportunity to go out and shadow people in the community and be able to see what their particular career they're interested in, so they don't spend 2, 3, 4 years in college and decide, oh, this is not what I want. Right. Sometimes one day of it and connecting with somebody. So I think, you know, internships is something that we in the business community need to provide more opportunities for. That provides exposure and opportunity for kids to learn and to understand whether or not they want to do it or not, or to know how to better prepare for that career path that they're interested in.
So
and they can get training on how to tie the bow ties.
Oh yes, I do that too. Yes, that's gonna be my side business.
Yeah.
Our Workforce Now program at the Chamber is in partnership with all the local schools in the 5 localities to do several things. We will be doing an expo in October called Discovery Days, where folks will set up booths and so forth showing plumbing or whatever it may be, not the more academic route, but job opportunities that are hands-on. And the schools are going to be busing in kids from every school system to have exposure to what those career paths can be in the Fredericksburg region. We also partner with them to do job interviews, mock interviews every year. I've done that. I don't know if you guys have participated before when we do it. It's pretty cool to sit down with like a 11th or 12th grader and act like you're interviewing them to come work with you, and then give them real feedback about how they show up. It really helps them for when they go out there. So there's a whole lot going on. We have to get the word out more about those partnerships so people are aware of what opportunities there are.
Do you think we'll ever get to the point where we'll share resources and maybe have a regional center for
I hope
vocational
so.
education?
We've been talking about that. We've had that conversation, at least brought it up to some of our delegates and senators and so forth. We'd like to have a regional career and technical center, and their ears perk up. Some people like the sound of it. You know, it's definitely something people are talking about.
Good.
So
Yeah.
from a little bit of a different perspective, and again, I'm very biased. I've been tutoring that same age group for about 10 years now, and I just feel like there's a whole lot of preconceived notions, or maybe kids actually, they just have an idea something is either good or bad. It's very simplistic. They don't quite understand yet. And if you can just build a relationship with them and then get them to say, so what do you do? And then you get to start sharing, and if they like you, then whatever it is that you do is now in the good camp. And then at a very impressionable age, you're able to get people to realize, hey, there are a lot of things out there. Like electricians are doing really cool things. And so if we just have opportunities for kids to just dispel a lot of those negative connotations that they may have picked up along the way, then they're just going to allow themselves to go to these fairs and other organized events and take advantage, because they're going to go up to the booth and they're going to say, tell me about what this is, as opposed to walking right by it.
That's it. Yeah. So, last question, unfortunately, because it's just getting good. There's a lot of discussion about, minimum wage, helping to increase the workforce, education, things that we've already discussed. What would be your last words of advice for other business leaders, whether it's young business leaders or individuals who have already started their business? What's one way to be able to invest in the progress for the future of this community, that there's already been progress had in all those areas that we've already talked about? But what's one word of advice that you would give to other business owners, business leaders, and individuals in the community on how we can invest in the progress in this community?
I think it's what we were just last talking about, investing in the development of the next generation or current generation in terms of their job readiness, in terms of basic skills and those technical skills, so that we will have the workforce that we need to build the infrastructure that we need here and for this community to thrive. Because we're all going to benefit. We may have the best companies, we may have the ample supply. People may be beating at our doors to get what to work for us.
Right.
But those other services that we need, whether it be healthcare that we need to make sure that we have enough nurses and all of the other ancillary healthcare professionals, food service, so that when we go out to eat, that we are served properly and the right options are available and the employees know the proper things to do, and we're not waiting an hour because they're short in the kitchen or the lines are long for anything. So we all benefit from the quality of life here if we have the right workforce and we're training our young people to take advantage of those things, and they're able to live well and earn well, and all of these are interrelated. So we don't live in isolation, in a bubble. We benefit from everyone thriving in this community. So.
And I would actually take that bubble comment one step further and say, at whatever level that somebody's working, whether they're entry level, whether they're the chief executive, grab a coffee with people that do what you do, understand what's out there, and especially if you're earlier in your career, you may realize that you're ahead of the game. You may realize that there's a best practice that you missed out on and this person just shared that with you. You might just find more support because you find other people that are mutually experiencing the same things that you are in your own life, which may be very different from your friend group if they do very different jobs or whatever it happens to be. So just getting comfortable, just reaching out, whether it's LinkedIn or somebody that you come across at a chamber event, just grab a coffee. The more you get to know your peers, I think that can only do good things for a community.
I would say not only getting to know your peers, but the individuals that are a couple steps ahead on the game as well. So to connect and collaborate. So connect ahead, collaborate, and it's one of my favorite quotes, be mindful to lift as you climb. So as other folks have helped, for young business especially, for other folks that have, helped you up along a rung on the ladder, just be mindful to turn around and help the young entrepreneur, the business person, the junior executive to that level. So as a community, we all continue to grow and thrive.
And I would also say, going back to a time that I was inspired by another, a gentleman named Gordon Shelton said to me when I was working on a campaign for Mayor Tomzak to be mayor, I was kind of in the dreaming mode. Like I want to do this. I want to make change happen. I want to see good things. I have this vision and all that. And he said, I'm going to tell you what Carl Silver said to me when I first started, when I was first on city council. And Gordon was like a handyman. Gordon was a regular folk, if you will. And he served 24 years on council. This is simple, but he said, nothing happens unless you make it happen. And that day was the day I stopped kind of just thinking about things and started doing. And so we can have all the things in the world presented to us. We can provide opportunities to others, but each of us is responsible as an individual to say nothing happens unless you make it happen. Take that step forward to the vision, to the job, to the dream, to whatever it is, and get your hands dirty, work hard, do what you have to do to get there. You don't start at the top. Right. So bear that in mind. Yeah.
Which is a challenge for many young people because I love them to death, but I call it the instant generation.
Yes.
I mean, they don't have to wait for anything. They've had instant food, instant TV, lots of instant things. So they want to come out making $80,000 and $90,000, sometimes out of high school, let alone college, and sometimes they don't want to wait. But we're all a reflection of our generation, so I love them to death, but that's the thing we got to do is help them to understand that sometimes you have to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains. And I preach that to them all the time, and sometimes they listen.
And hopefully, I'm hearing you as well when you all share these different nuggets of wisdom, and hopefully this forum can be another way for young people to learn, like, okay, if I'm going to really get into this, then I don't need to be thinking about it my senior year of college. This needs to be a discussion, earlier on. And I need the right people around me to be able to really actualize my dreams and my visions that I have and making it happen. And so we want to continue having these conversations, roundtables around different discussion topics. And so what you all have done here today is going to make a huge impact. So I just want to sincerely say thank you on behalf of the Hinesight team. We care, even though we're a nonprofit, we recognize that as a community, we all work together and we want to be able to be in that conversation with other community leaders, other business leaders, such as yourselves. There's probably 5 other things that you all do that I don't know and that I've learned even from this conversation. The next roundtable will be on education, so we'll be bringing in some education leaders. And then from there, we'll be talking about some of the United Nations global goals. And then we'll have another one next year with athletes and really trying to, bring together different silos that might have been separated before. A lot of you all are already good friends, which is great. And I really appreciate this time. There's been a lot that we've learned. And if there is any last words, I'd love for you all to be able to share them.
Just like to say, I'd like to thank you and Hinesight for having the foresight to have this conversation with us, particularly a young person such as you. I mean, it gives me hope for the future that young people like you are thinking about these things, and I commend you for the great job that you're doing, and encourage you to demonstrate that hopefully will encourage other young people to take that step and follow that dream, and knowing that there are people here to help you. Proud of you.
Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. And then next time I'll have the bow tie as well.
Make sure. I'll bring an extra one next time.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Will.